Hello Internet, and welcome to the show Do You Physics. Today we're going to be discussing the fantasy called Free Will, the juicy red outbreak, and the life and times of the parasitic host. I'm HamsterBomb, joined today by Matt, and of course, we're talking about zombies.
Zombies and ghouls. Ghouls and zombies.
Yes, this is gonna be an interesting one. I really like the tag stuff, the newspaper, those fake newspaper
tabloids.
Tabloids, yeah, that we get to come up with for this one.
They're amazing.
I just love those silly lines, and coming up with those for new episodes of this show is always fun. So, this time, the inspiration for, zombies. We didn't really intend on doing a full zombie episode, but this kind of split from another one we wanted to do, so we wanted to touch on where this originated from first, and it actually came from Monster Hunter, which is why originally Matt and I were working on this one together. We wanted to do a whole episode about Gore Magala. If you guys don't know, Gore Magala from the Monster Hunter franchise, he debuted in Monster Hunter 4, and basically he has this really weird, what would you call it?
Physiology?
Yeah, I guess, where he can send a cloud of scales off of his body that just kind of float around like clouds, and aside from the game alluding to the fact that that is how he sees you, that also will infect you with a virus.
Yep.
And that virus can also infect other monsters and will reanimate them and bring them back from the dead. And the more we were researching this, the more this whole episode was just turning into zombies. And
zombies and viruses and all kinds of wonderful things that you find on a Saturday afternoon.
Oh gosh, like we thought we ended up looking up some really weird stuff that was getting gross last time. This one is just nasty. This is all kinds of nasty. But granted, that's what zombies are. And you'd be a little too frightened to hear that, yeah, they probably could exist. Yeah. And I would not be surprised if some of these things we're going to be talking about today do not affect humans in ways that we just don't understand yet. That makes it all so much scarier. As soon as someone you know is a little sick, and by sick, I actually mean like has like symptoms of being sick, coughing or fever or something like that. But in addition to that,
at my work right now.
But well, yeah, it's going around. But if someone is sick like that, but also is experiencing some other very weird symptoms, personality changes, things that don't seem right, that actually could be some of these weird things we're going to be talking about today. So, I'm not sure whose we should start with first, because I was mainly looking into the how this could happen, and moreover, how it does happen in nature. And, Matt, you were mostly in, like, the outbreak, is that right?
I was more into the outbreak, how the infection spreads, and more putting a real side on it, moving both from the Walking Dead, not the comic, but you know what I mean, the zombies, to a human perception of, oh my gosh, the zombies outbreak's happening, what do we do?
Right. And there's obviously a lot to that. There's so many, I'm sure, zombie shows, and clearly there are, where people talk about, like,
everything's zombies now.
It's a fun thing to think about, like, if zombies hit right now, what would you do? Where would you go and all that? But
I really want the next phase. We're on zombie fads right now. I want the next one to be like werewolves.
Werewolves,
like a bunch of werewolf shows.
You just
go into a mall and there's a bunch of werewolf stuff all over the place.
You just made me shudder, because the only werewolf thing recently was Twilight, and like,
that's why we don't touch the vampires anymore.
which is a shame, because you could do some pretty cool stuff with vampires. Which, fun fact, vampires are basically tuberculosis.
Yeah,
if you look at where it comes from, that's basically tuberculosis and people being crazy. Zombies, however, they originate. I don't have the exact history of where they originate, but it's pretty interesting, like how just certain illnesses gave people this impression that the dead were coming back to life or something like that. Where things like that actually kind of happen in nature.
Yep, do you want to start off with that?
How about we start off with some of these examples? I've got a bunch of them here, and there were so many different examples. And to be completely honest, Instead of digging into way too many of these, I basically just grabbed 5 that I got from news.nationalgeographic.com. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, quotes and unquotes and all that stuff in a bit, but before we get into their examples, I just wanted to say I'm just showing these because there's a lot more.
Oh, there are.
And this was just a short, sweet, good list just to give you guys a good impression of how this is really happening. But before we even get into that, I can bring in another video game that we can talk about really quick that does use this in the same way it does in nature, and it was inspired by it, and that is Metal Gear Solid 5. So, I don't know, Matt, if you have gotten to the point in the game where you have seen this, of how it actually works, but it seems, and I'm not talking about Metal Gear Survive here, I'm talking about Metal Gear Solid 5, Hideo Kojima's last Metal Gear game. Now, in which, in case you are not familiar, there is basically a parasitic outbreak. I'm not going to spoil how it actually spreads, because that's pretty interesting, and that's a unique Metal Gear thing and has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. But the fact that it is using parasites in order to spread this outbreak from person to person.
It gets bad.
Yes, of course, that's the outbreak part. I know that's what you're digging into, but being a parasite, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And the examples that they use in the game are very accurate. They are true. So there's examples of certain parasites. I don't know if you know this. It's gross.
Oh, I know.
Of, say, let's say there is a parasite that for it to lay its eggs or something like that, or for it to grow more offspring, it needs to get into a cat's stomach, right? And that's its goal. It's trying to get to a cat's stomach. But right now, it was maybe ended up in like the feces of a cat, which somehow got rubbed onto a rat, and these things get into rats somehow, okay?
Right.
Now, what they need to do is get into a cat. How do they do that? They need to get that rat eaten. They actually can make the rats involuntarily
attack the cat.
Well, not just attack the cat. If they see like a shadow, they'll run towards the shadow. And they'll do irrational things that they would never do, because this parasite is actually manipulating what they're thinking. So there's also same deal of just wanting to get eaten, of certain worms and caterpillars that they have a parasite inside them that needs to be in a bird, and it wants to spread and go farther, and the way to do that is by flying. So it wants to get into a bird, and to do that, it makes the caterpillar notice when it's sunny, and instead of hiding, come out and wriggle around and try and get spotted and eaten by a bird. And the hosts, they can't stop this.
Nope.
This just happens to them. This happens. So I wanted to get you some specific examples instead of me just saying, hey, this rat's right into the cat's mouth, and this, cause...
Okay, I gotta stop you there, because when I was doing some research on my own on the parasite things,
yeah,
you remind me, I forget what website it was, but it was a quote. It's like, how to start the most disturbing Dr. Seuss comic ever.
Oh.
And it's to get the rat inside the cat.
Oh, no.
And you keep saying it, and I just keep hearing it in my head, and I'm just smiling like an idiot, so keep on going, I'm alright.
Oh, it's gross. Do you know you're gross?
I am gross, I'm sorry.
This whole episode's gross. Why are we even doing this one? Okay, so... this is going to be my first quote from National Geographic. Let's talk about our first example here. So, quote, when the female jewel wasp is ready to procreate, she finds a cockroach to serve as a living nursery for her young. First, she injects a toxin into the roach that paralyzes its front legs. Then the wasp strikes again in the roach's head. The venom targets a specific area of the brain responsible for inhibiting movement. Stripped of its ability to move of its own free will, the cockroach can be grabbed by the antenna and guided to a burrow where the wasp will lay her egg on the victim. The cockroach, lay her egg on the victim and entomb them together. The wasp larva slowly consumes the cockroach for several days before pupating in its abdomen, emerging as an adult about a month later.
Ugh. Ugh.
Okay. Can you imagine that? Now, if we take that kind of mentality, because that happens. Yeah. This happens. This is natural. And make this happen in a human. That is basically, imagine, even if it was a wasp, imagine, say, this wasp needed to lay its eggs in a human. This thing could fly up to your head.
It's like a flying face hugger.
Yes, if it could sting you in the right spot, right? And it could get this venom into a part of your brain, because that venom, it says it specifically targets a very, very specific part of its brain that inhibits your movement. the wasps could just use you. Parasites can use you. They can inhibit your movement completely and take you over. So this one is actually a chance where the wasp needs this parasite in order to procreate and keep going. So it's I was just going to say a parasitic life symbiosis thing where they both need each other to survive, and they're abusing another species just to do it. Thing is, how long is this gonna take before humans are the species that get abused to do it? So it's not too illogical.
This is why we're saving the bees and killing the wasp, all right? This stuff right here.
I've actually heard some studies where people were, like, entomologists are like, okay, is there any single redeeming factors of the mosquito? Can we please just kill all the mosquitoes? Because these things do nothing but spread disease, and they're annoying as heck if you go... Yeah, like, please, can we just... Well, yeah, they're annoying, but think of how many people are dying from, like, malaria.
West Nile.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many... It's horrible. And they just carry diseases. And, like, can we please just kill these? But you never know what you're doing to the ecosystem if you do stuff like that. And as far as we know, they carry no nutritional value. I mean, come on, it's a little... It's like stick legs. But...
We don't need it.
As far as I'm concerned, kill them all. I hate mosquitoes. But that was just one example.
What else you got for me?
Let me throw another one at you here. So,
God.
Quote, females of the Costa Rican wasp...
oh, good God.
Pardon my French here for the scientific name.
I don't even know how you would... Oh, God.
Let me just skip the scientific names, and I'm
H-A. We'll say H-A.
H-A. Oh, how about this? The Costa Rican wasp. How about that, okay? They lay their eggs in the abdomens of unlucky orb spiders called...
P.A.
P.A. After living off its host for a few weeks, the wasp larva ingests a chemical into the spider that makes it build a strange new kind of web, unlike anything it's built before. But this new web isn't for the spider. It's meant to support the cocoon that the wasp larva will build after finally killing and eating the spider.
Now you build what I want you to build, son.
Exactly. It made that spider build its own coffin.
It's like last episode.
Which became a nursery.
It's like last episode when we were talking about Legos.
God.
It always comes back to, you're gonna build something horrible for your own death.
That's what's happening. Is that, like, the more you hear about these things, like, it's just wrong.
I want to know, is it like a stronger kind of silk, I guess? Because it has to support the cocoon?
It's the same silk. Spider silk's actually very strong. Just on its own. But it's the fact that this spider... it knows how to build spider webs to trap things, but all of a sudden it starts building something it's never done before. It doesn't understand how this works. It's like if...
It's just doing it.
Yeah, right. If you had someone who was a plumber, all of a sudden... I don't know, doing all the electric in your house. I'm trying to bridge this somehow. Like, this is a trade it doesn't understand at all. Though it's still using the same tools it has. Maybe it's, you know, okay, my analogy's stretching a little thin. But it's still using its same brain. You know, it still knows typically how to solve typical problems. But maybe it's never worked with electricals before. Maybe it's doing engineering feats that are like, where did you get that? Right? And that's what this spider's doing. It's just strange. Let me throw another one at you. So there's more. We're not even halfway done.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Quote, as an adult, the lancet liver fluke, a type of flatworm, resides in the livers of grazing mammals such as cows. Its eggs are excreted in the host's feces, which are then eaten by snails. After the eggs hatch inside the snail creates protective cysts around the parasites and coughs them up in balls of mucus. This is just wonderful so far, isn't it? Like, can I get any more disgusting? The fluke-laden slime balls are then consumed by ants. When the flukes wriggle their way into an ant's brain, they cause the insect to climb to the tip of a blade of grass and sit motionless, where it's most likely to be eaten by a grazing mammal. That way, the liver fluke can complete its life cycle.
That's not a very eventful life.
That's disgusting. That whole cycle is just wrong. Can you get into any more disgusting places anywhere? Like, first you live in like eggs inside of cow poop, and then you go inside of mucus balls in snails' stomachs.
Snails eat poop?
And apparently, and then you go into the brains of ants. until you possess them, and this is the parasitic part, completely changing what the ant would do. This is the rat running into the cat thing. Ants standing motionless on the tip of the grass blades. The ant knows better than to do that, right?
Right.
There's something that's there's always things in history where people are like, oh, it's possessed by some spirit. Well, we actually now scientifically know why it's acting so irrationally, and the frightening thing is, I'm thinking, does this happen? Right, and does this happen for people? And we just don't know about what they're doing yet? Do we call some of them diseases?
Lizard people.
I don't know. Lizard people. No, but I mean, say if
well, it's like you said, tuberculosis.
Well, that's different, but I mean, like, this would be changes in behavior. So bipolar, I'm not saying it is, but I'm just throwing that out there. Bipolar disorder, say, or schizophrenia, maybe.
Rare cases where someone will get an organ transplant and their personality completely changes.
Yeah, things like that.
It's like,
what if? I know we don't really.
Yeah,
know
this is a big what if.
Right, we're just throwing this out there because we're trying to connect it to humans. What if they had a transfer, of an organ, and the original person who had it, for some reason, was able to fight off this parasite, and the parasite just wanted out. And by transferring the organ, the parasite's like, oh, this is perfect. This body, I can take over. I can do stuff to. And it goes right to the brain, and it starts changing things. Or maybe it did affect the host, and the host always acted that way.
I can't wait till we get the viruses.
Oh, gosh.
Some of the things you're saying, I'm like, I can do that.
Oh,
I
no.
can do that.
I don't want to hear that.
I can do that.
I do not want to hear it. This is the last. I want to hear you say, no, that can't happen. That totally can't happen.
You're not going to hear me say that.
Please tell me. Oh, no. It's just going to get worse and worse. Anyway,
let's keep going.
Gosh, yeah, let me throw another one at you. This one's a little bigger, and oh, great. I'm going to have some more scientific names. I'm going to try my best to pronounce these.
This is the best part of the entire podcast now.
Pardon my French. I'm going to do my best here. Quote, the fluke... Oh my goodness.
Hang on, I can't even read that.
I can do this. Okay. The fluke Euphalorchus californiensis. I think I got that right.
California, yeah.
Okay, but anyway, it begins its life in the ocean-dwelling horn snail, where it produces larvae that seek their next host, a killifish. Once it finds a fish, the parasite latches onto its gills and makes its way to the brain. But this isn't its final stop. The fluke needs to get inside the gut of a water bird in order to reproduce. So inside the killfish's brain, the fluke releases chemicals that cause the fish to shimmy, jerk, and jump. Jenny Shaw, then at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and colleagues found that the parasite decreases serotonin and increases dopamine levels in the fish's brain. Then the switch in this brain chemistry stimulates the fish to swim and behave more aggressively. These moves attract the attention of birds, which may eat the fish and the flukes. The flukes mate, and their eggs are released back into the water, and into the birds' droppings to be eaten by horn snails. What is it with these snails doing?
I don't know.
And start a new cycle. So once again, that's an entire cycle of going through something's life, of living in multiple animals, but the thing is they need to get to the next animal in order to reproduce. So this is why, through evolution, they've gotten the ability to do this. There's some relationship to another step. So, fortunately, as far as I know, in terms of ecology, there's nothing directly linking human feces with things that we eat. Though it could be a long chain. I don't know if, maybe there's certain areas where, our sewage goes straight to fertilize the fields where cows graze. That could happen.
Well, imagine something like, this is a long stretch, the tapeworms or something and stuff. Mm-hmm. We know how tapeworms work.
Yeah.
But what if they evolved a little bit and changed it to where if you did your waste to go to a cow field or something, we start using human fertilizer, which is a disgusting thought.
Yeah, that's so sick.
But... that'd be a way for the parasite to continue in a way, if it could.
Right. As if human feces is, more disgusting than cow feces. I mean, come on. It's feces. It's the same thing.
It's all the same.
But the thing is, though, you gotta remember, there could be multiple steps here, because in this and in several others, there was the snail. the snail that came in. And now it doesn't have to be
snail.
a direct link between the feces of the human and the next step. It could be the snail and maybe then a bird that eats the snail. And then the bird flies somewhere and the bird's droppings land in the field where the cows graze, right? So it really could. The only problem is there's got to be enough of them in order to justify that much of a change in the physiology of how they work, because evolution's going to need to require them to be able to pull this off, because to be able to get into the brain of these fish and release those chemicals in order to change their behavior so drastically, suicidally. That's what this is every single time. It is suicidally changing them. So it is so strong that is completely taking over the host's will to do what it pleases, which is the destruction of your free will.
Yep.
If you have a parasite, I'm sorry, there is no free will anymore. You
are a puppet.
You are a puppet. Yes, puppet strings are everywhere. I'm sorry, Pinocchio. You do have strings. There is something that can just straight up control you and make you irrationally do something. And gosh, that only scares me of where that's going to move for humans, if it moves for humans. So I'm going to have one more thrown at you before we're going to move over to Matt and see what you've got to say about this before we just start doing some back and
God,
forths.
there's another one?
Yeah, I got one more for you, okay? You ready for this? It's going to be another gross one.
No.
All right, here we go.
God.
Quote, hairworms have a perpetual challenge. They infect land-loving insects like crickets, but the parasites must make their way to an aquatic habitat in order to reproduce. This is how they all start, isn't it? Like, they all just want to reproduce.
They all just want to have sex.
They're just going to abuse every species out there in order to do that. You know, humans kind of do the same thing, too.
Yeah, we do.
All right, so anyway, moving on. Quote, researchers at France's, is it actually Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique?
Wow, okay then.
No, seriously, it's spelled like that.
I know, but I don't know if you did it perfectly or if you butchered it. That's the thing. You did it so well, I don't know.
One of the two. I bet I butchered it, though. There's people who listen to us from France. So they'll let me know. Figured out how they figured out how they accomplished this feat. Hairworms produce mind-controlling chemicals that cause the cricket host to move toward light. Because water bodies reflect moonlight, this often sends crickets towards lakes and streams. The crickets jump in and drown, and the hairworms emerge ready to find their next victim. That is frightening. Can you see the... Like, imagine, say, once again, big what if. Imagine we find out that people who jump off bridges, we start doing autopsies and find out that they all have a parasite in them that forced them to do it. For whatever reason. Because right now, I'm sure that cricket, I'm sure it's, if crickets really are that smart to have, like, families and they know and recognize and whatever.
What happened to Uncle Phil?
So, Uncle Phil's nephew, Steve, is over there crying in a corner like, what happened to Uncle Phil Cricket? He's gone! And they're all wondering, why are so many of our kind drowning themselves? Why do we have such a high suicide rate by drowning?
Okay, can we rephrase that?
This is such a morbid and disgusting...
I know, it's horrible. Oh,
I know, but
God.
I'm trying to make the analogy.
I know.
But, like, just imagine if we found that out, how shocking that would be. That would be earth-shattering. You imagine how many people who have relatives or people they know who have died that way?
Well,
and they probably... once again, this is a big what if. I'm not saying this is true, but imagine that thought where you realize... We thought there was something seriously emotionally stressing them. And you know how they'll interview people and they're like, I didn't think there was anything wrong with them. I didn't see any signs for this. Mm-hmm. Imagine if it was a parasite that they didn't know what was happening. They were kind of controlled to go to a bridge or something where with this reflective water, find the water and jump in. And they couldn't get out, even though they were trying. That would be so horrible.
So I don't like mind control.
No, not at all. So anyway, there's just some examples. I wanted to go through a few of them.
That really just reminded me of, like, have you read the book or seen the horrible movie of The Happening?
I know about it, but no. Enlighten me and assume the readers listeners.
Like it's the entire premise of the movie is kind of stupid. It's trees are making people kill themselves.
Oh, right.
But still, at the same time, the whole mentioning of a certain pheromone changing your brain's way of thinking.
Right. That
could eventually do that.
That is, yeah. It could cause certain parts of your brain to release different chemicals, in which case, yeah, would cause like these parasitic effects to happen to people. And that's really frightening. Also, I've been listening recently, kind of unrelated, but some weird studies of how smart plants are that we're finding out. They do some very intelligent things.
Oh, plants are incredibly smart.
Yeah, definitely for another Do You Physics episode.
Maybe about Bellsprout or something.
I've actually got one, we're probably going to be coming up about herbs and potions. About
that's right, we do have that one.
Like about how healing would actually happen with really weird plant effects. But that's just a teaser for another one, maybe coming in the future. But either way, I just wanted to cover, like, typically how this happens in nature, of things that we have documented, and we know for sure it's happening. And okay, one big thing that I want to point out that I did not have here is an undead creature.
Right.
Being possessed, or completely being controlled. The closest to that, I think, was the wasp stinging the cockroach with its venom in the head.
Right.
And the reason was it completely took over its involuntary nervous system.
Right, and just learned how to use its nervous system.
Right, and it was able to guide it and make it do whatever it wanted. So, in that sense, if we go back to Monster Hunter, where we're talking about Gormagala releasing a virus, it could be argued that those monsters or humans or whoever gets infected by this virus, that they succumb to the virus, right? And it finally gets into their brain and their involuntary nervous system is out. And at that point, they're dead. I mean, they're half alive.
Well, it's
and I mean, zombies, I mean, to be fair, if it's dead and you shoot it in the face,
it's not going to do anything. It's dead.
No, I mean, is it dead now when it stops moving?
That's the whole thing. What do we classify? That's where I'm going to go with the whole virus thing is.
Yeah, how do you consider it being dead?
How do we classify it?
Yeah, because if we go with the full zombie story, then nothing can really. If it's dead, then it cannot be animated, right?
Yes.
And the whole thing is reanimated corpse.
And we're talking about actual physics here. Is the whole point is once the heart stops, like even with defibrillators, they have to do it before the heart stops. Because once it's done, you can't reinitiate that.
Right. Something else needs to be taking over in order to do that.
Right.
So it's a completely counteractive statement to say reanimated corpse. It cannot be animated if it is just a corpse.
Right.
Unless it was in some weird in-between state. And that would make sense for zombies, because they walk around and they look and move like they're alive. But at the same time, we know that whoever used to be in there
is gone.
Is not there and is not coming back.
Doesn't that make you mad in like zombie movies and stuff where like their wife or someone comes affected and they're like, oh no, I know you're still in there. It's like, no, dude, that's a zombie.
Like, dude, different. Well, I mean, to be fair, if that happened to someone I really cared about, I would do the same thing. I would probably try and trap them in a room and wait.
I'm gonna get Kim. I'm gonna go, when we're done with this podcast, I'm gonna go to Kim and be like, okay, if you become a zombie, Alex is gonna be like the creepy priest dude. Yeah, keep you locked in a room.
Yeah, just know, I will keep her in a room and locked in there. The reason is because just in case, because you never really know in those zombie films, like, is there gonna be an antidote or something they find later? And if it was a parasitic thing, they could. And imagine how bad would you feel if you killed your entire family and it turned out a month later after you survived that there was an antidote and they've been curing people. You just killed your entire family. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not doing that.
This is weird. Okay, yeah, this took a weird turn.
So yeah, I would be that person who would like throw meat in the window and try and just like keep one alive and no, the others are dead.
You become like this crazy old guy with like a really long beard.
Right, like the governor in The Walking Dead, who just like keeps his daughter in the closet and like keeps her chained up and tries to feed her and just goes nuts because of it. Oh my gosh, yeah, but That's basically how that would go. And so for people, because I'm trying to get to the transition so that I can, throw this one over to you. I think that it totally is feasible. Parasitic-wise, that's the way to do it. I mean, I don't see any other bits in nature where this happens, because the thing about the zombie is something controls it away from its free will. And the only things that we know that do that are parasites. Mm-hmm. So there's my solution. So in terms of, I wanted at least one of the two of us to say, no, this can't happen, and you were scaring me earlier. But yes, I would say zombies can happen for humans. I'm putting my answer down. I'm locking it in. Ding, final answer. Yes, it can happen.
It can happen.
Please tell me it won't. Oh my goodness. Think of like the CRISPR episode of someone actually engineering
I'm going to
a parasite zombie. No!
You helped me with that.
No!
Yeah, you did.
Alright, so guys, just in case you don't know what we're talking about with CRISPR, it's too much to get into right now. Just take a listen to our last episode about CRISPR and creating monsters. No, Matt! No! Alright, go ahead. You have the floor.
Alright, so I don't know if you know this. One of my, do you have access to my Steam account?
I don't.
Are we friends?
I mean, are we friends?
We're not friends.
I don't know.
Anyway, one of my favorite games to pass the time is Plague Inc., and I'm sure you know that game.
Actually, no, I don't.
Oh my gosh.
And once again, you gotta assume that our audience does not.
Basically, what it is you create a virus.
Okay.
It is your job to make that virus wipe out humanity.
That's awful.
Oh, it's horrible, but it's amazing. Because you gotta choose things like, how will the virus spread?
I've gotta check this out.
By going on boats, on planes. What if countries shut down their airports? What if they shut down their ports?
That is awful.
You got to get past that. Okay, well, they shut down the port. I'm going to make it so birds can carry this disease. You can't stop the birds from landing in your country.
Right.
But anyway.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and go back. So, when I think zombie, I think more of losing the free will. Because that's what a zombie is. If you go back to voodoo, that's where zombies came from. It's a slave who has no free will and is doing whatever the voodoo master tells them.
Exactly, yes.
Now, the modern day zombies, which are more like ghouls, which are living dead or creatures coming back and eating flesh.
Right, they got glorified from Night of the Living Dead.
Yes, thank you.
Which, fun fact, the only reason that we have so many zombie stories is because Night of the Living Dead made a mistake in the beginning of its film. You know what that mistake was?
Which was that?
They forgot to put the copyright information in the movie.
They did?
They forgot. And because they forgot, zombies are fair use.
Wow! I did not know that. Okay.
That is why they're fair use. So, I mean, think of like Frankenstein. Every time you see an icon of Frankenstein, he's copyrighted. They're not allowed to do that. And zombies are everywhere. Robert Kirkman was actually going to name Walking Dead Night of the Living Dead. Just because.
He could.
It's fair use, and he's allowed to.
Oh,
now, I'm kind of glad he didn't.
Yeah, it's not as cool as a title.
No, but he honestly wanted to do it as an homage.
Right.
Because of where it came from, but still, so to be fair, but there's your little history lesson about Night of the Living Dead before we carry on. So, sorry. Go ahead.
That's fine. So, my main thing is, I wanted to know more about the viruses and how a virus like that could spread. Because obviously the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has done studies like, say a zombie outbreak happened in New York.
They are the firefighters.
How long would it take over to U.S.? Like, for us, it'd be about 2 weeks we'd have to prepare for zombies.
Yeah. And just in case you don't know, the CDC is the Center for Disease Control, and it's basically their job to house crazy infectious diseases, study them, figure out how we can counter them, and make sure that the big ones don't get out. So it's a prison and a research facility at the same time.
But what if we wanted one to get out?
Matt, no.
Yeah.
No. No. You've been playing that game too much.
No. I've been playing that game, and I've been one of my favorite resources to use. And when I told you this, your face, because you're using a comic as a source.
Right.
And your face, I could tell. It's like...
I was like, please don't make don't cite
something
that's not scientifically based.
Thanks for telling me about CRISPR, because this can happen.
Oh, no.
In the comic 28 Days Later, they're not zombies, but a virus called the Rage virus. And what it was is they were trying to figure out a way to... You know how people can be mentally violent and unstable and all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we actually, as I was just saying earlier, like that fish.
Yep.
That fish became very violent and active just because of a parasite. So
say we wanted to counteract that with CRISPR. You know, we can go in there and cut that part of that person's DNA out, put a new part in where they're not so aggressive.
You could do that to the person. You could also manipulate the parasite, but the thing is, you can only do it for that one parasite and it wouldn't spread.
But say I found a way to change the genome in a human brain to do that. To make someone not violent anymore.
Okay.
And I wanted to spread that super duper quick.
Can I say something really quick though?
Go ahead.
we have that tendency to be violent for a reason.
Exactly.
And yeah, there's reasons through evolution where we've needed to be violent.
I know, and I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Don't you worry your pretty
I was
little
say
head.
if we were happy and blissful about everything.
No, this is just to control people who are overly violent, like mental
right.
violent.
And that's where ice pick lobotomies came from.
Yeah, and we're not talking about that because that in general makes me cringe. Like,
yeah, it's.
I just got done watching a documentary 2 days ago about insane asylums, and it's okay.
Yeah, they went in through the eye.
So,
sorry, I'll
so
stop.
say I found a way to change the gene in a human brain to make them less aggressive, not get rid of aggressive completely, but a little less aggressive.
Okay.
Now, obviously, you want to try. The best way to do that is to spread it. So I need a counteractive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to name you the top 3 infectious diseases in the world.
Okay.
H1N1, which you know of, which is basically the flu.
Yeah.
The other one is HIV.
Okay.
Which I'm not going to explain how that transfers because anyone who's listening to our podcast should know how HIV is transferred, and if you don't, go talk to a teacher. And number 3, and my personal favorite of all infectious diseases, because whenever I play Plague Inc., this is what I base it off of, is Ebola.
Oh, no.
Now, do you know how Ebola is usually spread?
It needs blood to blood or saliva to. It basically needs to
Fluid contact.
Yes, a fluid contact.
Either through gastrointestinal,
like
blood,
I said, saliva,
eyes,
mucus, blood. Like I think a recent outbreak, one of the recent outbreaks was when a doctor was treating a patient who was recently murdered, or like trying to do like an autopsy.
Yep.
And he didn't know that they were infected, but because of messing with the blood, he got some of their blood into him, and boom, it exploded.
Yep. Now the one thing we know about viruses, because this is the constant battle between humans and doctors, the use of antibiotics, is the virus is always going to try and overcome the antibiotic. It is an organism. It is going to evolve. Mm-hmm. Let's say this virus, specifically the Ebola virus, figures out the best way to evolve and surpass itself is to spread itself faster.
Okay.
Which already it's
fair,
doing pretty fast.
Can I back you up really quick?
Go ahead.
Viruses and parasites are very different things.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about viruses. You were talking about
I understand. So I just want to make sure that the audience is not...
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We didn't really make that clear.
Yeah, we need to make sure that we bridge that. So,
yeah. I'm talking about viruses. He was talking about
yeah,
parasites.
so the parasite seems to make very intelligent decisions in order to destroy things and make them do horrible things. And the viruses cause horrible effects and spread so fast. The parasite has no urge to spread unless there was some reason that a virus helped spread the parasite. And
Right.
if those two became buddies, we're screwed.
That's kind of where I'm getting at, because you
dang
mentioned
it.
something that
Why
I was
am
going
I
to bring
throwing you bones?
up. Well, you're not. I'm just letting you know. You're one about that fish, the killifish, how I got really aggressive and started wiggling. Mm-hmm. Let's say the killifish figured out in humans, like, oh, there's this virus that spreads really quickly, and if I can put my eggs, like somehow very because parasites are microscopic half the time, in the cells of that virus and spread with the virus, then I can spread faster. Well, if I make this person really aggressive and lose all sense of human, and to the point where the best way to spread that virus is if I run towards you and either scratch you or bite you, and then you get infected, and then your next mental thing is to go find someone who isn't and go scratch them and bite them.
Oh, no.
Ebola spreads quick. That was the whole problem in Africa. Is they had to control it. They had to keep it contained.
It spreads very fast. And
it
especially it's where it was a very violent area.
Right.
And there was actually the biggest problem of trying to contain it was the source was actually between rival gangs, and neither gang wanted to come forward to the police to be quarantined, so they both kept fighting each other. Blood-to-blood contact was happening with knife fights and things like that. People were dying not only from the gang violence, but from Ebola, which was then rapidly spreading and then leaving the country and going to the doctors, that's the worst.
But this is where I'm getting to, when I finally made this click after doing research. Because I did a little bit of research on the parasites, but I knew about that, and it kind of got the same for me, so I went to the viruses.
Yeah. He also kind of knew I was going to be covering that. So.
Right, so I'm like, I don't really need to spend a lot of time with this. But that's when 28 days later came in. Because it's like, the whole point of that virus is they merged it with the Ebola virus to spread it. But the Ebola virus mutated and said, instead of making them less aggressive,
so in this comic,
I'm making them hyper-aggressive.
So in this comic, they intentionally made a virus in order to spread this?
Yes, but the goal was to cure people with rage.
Oh,
but Ebola
it was
said no, F that.
It was an unintended side effect.
Right. Ebola mutated and said, no, let's flip that. Let's make them highly aggressive.
Okay.
And this is where I'm going back.
I guess I can see that happening.
Well, here's the thing. This is where I'm going back to gore.
Okay.
What happens when a monster goes frenzy? You saw the Tigrex video. When you first get introduced, what does that Tigrex look like?
Well, first, in that battle, just to make sure that everyone sees this, you see a normal Tigrex.
Yep.
And you fight this very normal monster that you are used to. Well, to be fair, the Tigrex, the one example, he's the one that you fight the frenzy version before the normal one, so whatever video game stuff. But you see a normal monster.
Yep.
You start fighting the monster until you get him to a certain point.
Say a point where his health is low, or he wasn't at his
something
peak.
happens that either you could have assisted the virus in getting to his brain faster by causing enough damage.
Adrenaline rush.
Possibly an adrenaline rush. His blood was pumping faster. It could have gone straight to his brain quicker. And then he kind of collapses for a bit. You see this steam kind of coming out of his body.
I'm not even going to try and explain that, because that one's next.
It's a visual effect for the game.
It is.
So then all of a sudden the eyes glow purple. He changes color, and he's completely different. And he's acting different. He's faster. He's stronger. And it's obviously much, much more aggressive. And that's the big idea in Monster Hunter, how the virus works. So you're saying that this virus, your theoretical virus, would lay dormant in someone until it gets the opportunity to spread?
It wouldn't have to. Like, say, the whole thing about the viruses and the zombies is, I'm imagining say I'm a normal person, and I see someone doing this, and I'm going to go, oh my god, they're a zombie. If I see someone who has, and these are the symptoms of Ebola, bloodshot eyes, because blood vessels bursting, vomiting blood, which is disgusting, and I don't want to even go into the details on that.
Internal organs that are just like
But
melting.
This person who looks like this is running after people who are healthy, infecting them, and then as soon as they're infected, they go for another person who's healthy, because the virus wants to spread, especially if it's a parasitic virus.
Right, the virus wants to spread, but I think for them to make those involuntary reactions, they would need a symbiotic parasite in order to assist them in that.
Right.
That's the dangerous thing. As soon as that happens, then you got zombies.
That's the thing I want to know.
Can you imagine that? Because imagine what that would look like.
Oh, it'd be terrifying. Are you kidding me?
That would look exactly like zombies, except the skin's not going to be rotting and all that stuff. But that would be a person who's covered in blood, dripping all over, just running at another person, like scratching with their hands and biting and attacking this other person, trying to infect them.
I don't think it's, like, once again, I'm putting that, this is where my cards come on the table and say I don't think zombies could happen.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, they would need, the one thing is I think there would have to be a brotherhood, a coalition between viruses and parasites.
Right, now I'm not saying, I don't know if that's not entirely not possible.
I am not a microbiologist.
Neither am I. Like, we literally did maybe a couple days of internet research.
Exactly. So, to be fair, all of this could be BS, but it's just fun to talk about.
It is, because imagine if, say, that parasite, once again, like a monster, could overcome that virus and use it.
Or if someone was just, because imagine, as soon as computers went out and the internet was a thing, we had trolls who decided to try and make viruses to attack other people's computers just to be a jerk.
Yep.
Now, imagine CRISPR gets out and you have the same thing. You have jerks who just want to cause havoc. Somebody easily could just make a virus that requires a symbiotic relationship with a very specific parasite and then creates the parasite that requires a very specific symbiotic relationship with a virus, and boom, you have made zombies. Please don't be that person.
That takes trolling too far.
That is
way too far.
That is way too. What could you do? How would you treat both of those things? I don't know how you could.
You can, and like even in the thing, because I was like, there's no way to cure this, and that's partially how I constantly went to play again, because I'm a cynical. I am that jerk who makes that virus. But even
you would play that game and have fun with it.
Even in the comic of like 28 Days Later, there is no cure. The only thing they can do is wait for these people, because they are still people who are just infected with a virus, to starve to death. That's the only thing you can do, is hope you have everything quarantined, wait for them to die off, go in there and kill them. But if you send someone in, you're sending in a risk factor.
Oh, man, yeah, you are. I can imagine this. That is a zombie quarantine zone. They're all
don't
running.
go in.
They're all running around because they'd be trying to infect others. They would probably be attacking each other, because the parasite / virus would never know if that body has it. So that would be one big difference. Zombies wouldn't just, say like, this is our team versus your team. It would be every man for himself. Everyone's attacking everyone. If they're in that, let's just quote the zombie virus. If they have that, your Ebola parasite. If they have this,
I'm gonna name him Ebby.
that is wrong. How wrong that is.
What? Ebby's a good parasite.
Oh man, Ebby the parasite is just. Oh my gosh, like that could very well be the end of humanity. If we don't kill ourselves with something else, that would be like the one internet troll.
I didn't even get to think about that point. You're the one who said, say I take CRISPR and make a parasite who needs this virus, and then I take this virus who needs a parasite with CRISPR.
Yeah.
Here you guys go. There's Ebby. Have fun.
Exactly. That's how you make it. And that is awful. So as far as parasites are concerned, a parasite on its own could cause humans eventually to, or maybe even does now, to do things that we just don't understand, or it does awful things, or things that cause unintended effects on the human.
But I wouldn't go so far as say that the parasite would make a zombie by itself. Just like I wouldn't go say a virus could make it by itself.
Right, so I would say that's where I was going with this. So the parasite could do things like that to a human, but as of right now, it would not spread in the way a virus would. So you're good on that front. So I could put your chips down and feel a little safer about this one. Viruses have the ability to spread and do a lot of damage, but they don't have that free will molding drive to change the will of the host in order to keep spreading in the way that a parasite does, in order to lay eggs and continue to grow. So those two need to marry for a zombie outbreak to really happen.
Which CRISPR can help with.
Don't say that. Don't give people ideas.
You're the one who brought that up.
I was trying to solve the problem just for the sake of do you physics, and now I'm in trouble because I think that, I don't know. Someone please, some microbiologist, please prove us wrong of how CRISPR or anything could ever bring those two together. Because I don't see any reason why you couldn't make some sort of dependency. You would have to, here's the big thing. In the DNA, you would need to find something that viruses are dependent on, and then parasites are dependent on, and replace it with the opposite. What did you just owe?
Okay. You haven't played Monster Hunter World yet.
No.
And probably some of our viewers haven't, but there is a monster in there that does have that relationship.
Of parasites and
gas virus, yes.
Okay. In a Gormagala sense?
Pretty much, yeah. It's actually really cool. I'll have to show you when you eventually play it, but that just kind of popped in. Now I don't want to go fight that monster anymore.
Yeah, that was something I always wondered about in Monster Hunter. When you get the virus and you get possessed by it, you know how in gameplay, as far as the rest of that quest, you really cannot get rid of it. You either succumb to the virus and you deal with the damage dealt to it for a certain amount of time and it'll just go away, or you fight it off, and I'm assuming that's an immune system thing.
Right.
You fight it off, and by fighting it off, once again you get a buff, but it'll go away after a while. So because they say there's no cure, how come it just goes away? I mean, it's a gameplay thing.
Right, and that's the whole thing. That's part of the reason why we didn't do the whole Gormagala, because even when you look into the physiology of it, like what Capcom has said, this is what this monster does in its lifetime.
You're right. And we did. The more we read up on Gormagala, the more answers we were actually finding that were in his physiology and his ecology written into the game, which are very interesting, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely read him. He's not a dragon.
Yeah, totally. Oh gosh, he's like an insect, isn't he?
Yeah, because they even say when his wings come out, they don't call him wings, they call him his sixth set of arms.
Right, and it's his exoskeleton. If you ever notice how similar he looks up close to Celtos or the other bugs.
Right, he doesn't have teeth.
I didn't realize. Yeah, he doesn't have teeth, and there's so many things. But anyway, read up on that. Monster Hunter's got some really cool ecologies. If you're into Monster Hunter and the rest of their stories of how everything branched together, it's so in depth. Like,
it really is. Like for the people who say, "Oh, this game series has no story," it's like you do not understand.
You don't understand. Like it's more like Metroid Prime. Like it's there. You just aren't digging into it. Like, you need to read all the lore and you really get of what's going on, and there's a lot there, so it's really cool. So anyway, what's our conclusion here?
I'm gonna go throw up in a bucket.
I know. What's our conclusion here for zombies then?
Parasites are horrible, and I swear to God, if anyone takes CRISPR and does that, we're done. We are done as a species. Unless you take CRISPR and make another parasite that fights those parasites, and then you have another parasite war.
That would be, oh gosh, there would be a fight between the CRISPR firefighters and the CRISPR internet trolls. That is, and everyone else in the world is collateral.
I'm sorry about this.
That is terrible. Oh my gosh. But anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time for some more game science. Be sure to follow us either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And we will see you all in the next episode of Do You Physics. See you.
Bye.